Everyone loves Star Wars. I love Star Wars, you love Star Wars, your nan loves Star Wars. It's one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. We now have 9 mainline movies, 3 spin-off movies, 2 spin-off TV shows, 4 amazing LEGO games, several dozen other licensed games, a dozen libraries worth of books, and we have more stuff in the pipeline on Disney+. Amongst this maelstrom of content, I thought, hey, why not have a look at some of them? In this video, I'm going to focus on the 9 mainline movies, dubbed the Skywalker Saga. Now, the fact that it's being called a saga implies we may well be getting more mainline movies in the future. I'll probably review them depending on how good they are. Or how bad they are. For some reason, after making the first 3 movies, George Lucas went, you know what would be a really good idea? Taking all the mystery out of Darth Vader and making him a whiny little child. The prequels followed the story of said whiny child and the fall of the Republic. It honestly has a really interesting story. It's also got dogshit execution.
It's over, Kenobi. I have the high ground.
I don't know what's happened, but for some reason my voice has become completely fucked. Take the original trilogy, take all the charm and humor out, shove some bad CGI and slightly creepy relationships in there. Got the Phantom Menace. This is a boring film. It feels like nothing much happens in it, when, weirdly, a lot happens. It's almost impressive. There is good, but for the most part, this is the second worst Star Wars movie after Attack of the Clones. Which we'll get to, don't you worry. To be fair on Attack of the Clones, though, a film being painfully bad is arguably better than a film being painfully boring. The fight choreography is a huge upgrade from the original trilogy. They're very dynamic, there's lots of movements, and if you just wanted spectacle, the ending provides that. The music is also fantastic. Duel of the Fates is a song that I actually go out of my way to listen to sometimes. Everything else. The dialogue feels really weird. I can't think of any other word to describe it than that. The acting is pretty dog shit. Given that this film has Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson in it, who are both pretty good actors, I'd say that's probably down to the direction. Padme and Anakin's relationship feels really creepy, but what's weird is that when you think about it, it's not that bad. Canonically, Padme is 14 during The Phantom Menace, and Anakin is 9, turning 10 by the end. A 5-year age gap really isn't that bad, but for some reason, Natalie Portman looks like she is 20 years old. She was 16 when they filmed this. I don't know how they pulled this off. It's hardly the creepiest relationship in Star Wars, though. Look at that. Jar Jar Binks. He was supposed to be the comic relief character, but he was just the most annoying part of this movie. I really pity the actor who played him, and also young Anakin. They didn't have any control over the characters, and yet the internet, being the undeveloped fetuses that they are, decided to bully them off social media for them. It's really quite sad. While CGI in the other prequel movies looks disgusting, Puppet Yoda looks even worse. I don't know why they didn't just use the original mold from Empire Strikes Back. That's what they did for The Last Jedi, and Yoda looks fantastic in that film. All in all, this film is dog shit. I hate it.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
Oh, that's hot.
I'm just going to up and say it, Attack of the Clones is the worst Star Wars movie. While I'm bored to tears watching The Phantom Menace and I'm insulted watching The Rise of Skywalker, this is the only Star Wars film that genuinely pains me to watch. It's not even funny to take the piss out of this. The film just hurts. When a shot is made entirely up of CGI, it's passable. Obi-Wan has some good lines. Again, the choreography is pretty good. But other than that, the dialogue in this film is arguably the worst in the entire series.
I don't like sand. It's rough, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere.
Speaking of hating sand, Anakin is an annoying, mardy twat. He's kinda like Luke in A New Hope, except even Luke managed to be more charming than Anakin is. If it wasn't for the Clone Wars and the last 30 minutes of Revenge of the Sith, I would despise Anakin as a character. CGI looks shit, acting's bad, you get the idea. Fuck this movie.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Isn't that an absolute in and of itself?
Revenge of the Sith is a weird one. It's nowhere near as painful to watch as Attack of the Clones, it's nowhere near as boring as The Phantom Menace. In fact, it's easily the best prequel movie. What is weird though is during the last 30 minutes, it becomes the best Star Wars movie. I'm not kidding. The final fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin is goddamn fantastic. The music is great, the choreography is great, the CGI even weirdly gets better at the end. Again, the final fight is fantastic, and even though I hate most of the characters that died, Order 66 still manages to be weirdly heartbreaking to watch. There's also some really good lines in this film, such as the conversation between Grievous and Anakin, Obi-Wan's little
So uncivilized.
and of course, hello there. I also love that by implying Grievous and Anakin have never met, Lucas single-handedly derailed the Clone Wars. They had to jump through so many hoops to stop Grievous and Anakin from ever meeting. This is a prequel movie, and that does mean some clunky dialogue. Word of advice, George?
You're so beautiful.
It's only because I'm so in love.
No. No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
No one speaks like this. The original trilogy has been held in such high regard for so long that if you say anything negative about it, you are guaranteed to have someone chatting shit about you afterwards. Despite this, I really don't think anyone's watched these films in a while. Pretty much every single complaint people had for The Last Jedi, which resulted in them going, "This is the worst Star Wars movie of all time," also applied to pretty much all of these films in the original trilogy. These films are just that, films. They have flaws, they're far from perfect. I thought in the first two that Luke was an annoying twat. That doesn't suddenly make these films bad or Luke a bad character. By Return of the Jedi, I really liked him. I really do think people hold these films in too high regard. People act like these are the second coming of Christ or some shit, and it's people believing these are the greatest movies of all time that resulted in a bunch of yes men being put with George Lucas to make the prequel trilogy, and we all saw how that turned out. I also think people's devotions to these films is extremely concerning. It's all well and good to have a healthy or even passionate appreciation about whatever you want, but when it starts becoming your entire personality, that's when it's a problem. It's like Dream Stands, but with movies and not a person.
How did my father die?
I chopped his legs off and threw him into lava. It was hilarious. He never saw it coming.
It's only after rewatching it that I realized just how goofy A New Hope actually is. Its humor can be almost pantomimey at points. For example, C-3PO wailing in despair because he believes his friends are dead, when in reality they're cheering because C-3PO saved their lives. Or the Stormtrooper smacking his head on the way through a door. I'm fairly confident that's probably just an editing mistake as opposed to an actual joke, but I still think it's funny. Weirdly enough, the pantomimey jokes actually help add to the charm of A New Hope, and watching it, I can absolutely understand why it was such a big hit at the time. It has aged a bit, but that's just the nature of movies from that era of cinema. While I'd rather not have the CGI of the special edition, I don't think the additions are too awful. I also think it's quite clever how you never really get told what the Force is or what the Force can do, because it allows them to essentially just use it as the Star Wars equivalent of Flex Seal. If there's a plot hole in the script, they can just throw the Force in there. For example, how the fuck did Luke jump out of the carbon freezing chamber? The Force. How did Luke grab his lightsaber? The Force. How did Leia get back onto the ship? The Force. Purely from a rating perspective, that's really clever. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just more cynical now that I'm a little older, but Luke is an annoying twat in this film. More or less, all of his lines are in some way whiny, and it really starts to go on your nerves after a while. It really makes me question why anyone likes this character enough to bitch about his death later on. Oh shit, spoilers.
I love you.
Fuck off.
Empire Strikes Back is widely regarded as the best Star Wars movie, and I gotta agree with that. While I thought Luke was kind of annoying in A New Hope, I didn't think he was nearly as annoying in this one. Han, Leia, and Chewie are all great, and C-3PO and Yoda provide some hilarious comic relief. Going into this blind also helps add to the awesomeness of the film, because you don't know that Darth Vader is Luke's father until the end of this film. All in all, best Star Wars movie. I'm gonna largely be repeating myself from what I said in the beginning because I kinda gushed over it, but fuck you, this is my video, I can do what I like. All the characters are great in this film, but Yoda was easily the best. Of all the Star Wars movies he's in, I think this is my favorite, especially when he first meets Luke. Yoda acts pretty much like a Muppet, and that's just a lot of fun. It also makes sense considering he's literally played by a Muppet. I was planning on putting the Vader reveal in the good, but it's only now that I realize that it really has no impact other than shock value unless you've already seen the prequels or Return of the Jedi. Once you've seen Return of the Jedi, you can start to see the parallels between Luke and Vader's lives, but as of Empire, we haven't seen any evidence they were connected at all other than the Force, and even then, Ben and Yoda both used the Force, so it's not much of a connection. The special effects also have aged. I think they use stop motion for the AT-ATs and other various walkers, and while impressive, they do look a little bit janky.
Master Yoda. Is Darth Vader my father?
No, Joe your father is. Inside your ass Yoda is. Reach the colon I must. Balls deep in your mum Yoda is. I'm turning into some fucking sailor pirate thing. Or just Irish.
Return of the Jedi is a really good ending for the original trilogy. It closes all the character arcs set up in previous films in a satisfying way, and it ties a nice little bow over the story of the original trilogy. It has some major issues, much larger ones than I think either of the previous two, but it's still far from the worst Star Wars movie. Special effects are a huge upgrade from Empire Strikes Back. While in Empire they looked good, they did also look janky. While there are still very janky scenes in Return of the Jedi, for the most part they look a lot better. I also thought Luke's character was really interesting in this one, if only because of how people would react to that same character years later. This film shows a side of Luke that we haven't really seen up till now. He's very confident here and not afraid to flirt with the dark side. I mean, the first time we see him in the flesh, he force chokes a guard. It's this film that shows that Luke is flawed even despite being a Jedi. In the final confrontation with Vader, Luke momentarily loses it and just starts wailing on Vader, only to come to his senses and stop before the killing blow. What's especially interesting is years later when The Last Jedi came out, people would bitch endlessly about this exact same side of Luke. This film shows that if it means saving people he loves, Luke isn't afraid to give in to the dark side, and The Last Jedi just cements that. Most of the special edition changes in the Star Wars original trilogy are complete dog shit, but I do think the ending celebration scene from the special edition is better than the original version. With that said, every other change in the special edition is awful. For instance, that fucking scene in Jabba's palace. It's just awful. I don't know whose idea it was, but it was the wrong idea. As iconic as the second Death Star is, I do also think it's kinda cheap. I wish that instead of a Death Star they had gone with something else, some other threat for them to blow up, but that's kind of a minor thing. Also, going back to Jabba's palace, Luke's plan is an awful one. There is no way it should have worked. So much was up to chance. What if Jabba decided he didn't want R2 and just scrapped him? Luke wouldn't have got his lightsaber and would have died horribly. Oh boy, I'm gonna piss some people off with these opinions. The Star Wars sequel trilogy feels incredibly disjointed, probably because they didn't go into this with a plan and switch director each movie. With that said, while the overall plot sucks balls and asshole, the individual films are significantly better than the entirety of the prequel trilogy, bar the last 30 minutes of Revenge of the Sith, which is the best Star Wars movie, and if you disagree, I will fight you. A lot of people have very valid criticisms of the trilogy, and a lot of people have very misguided defenses of the trilogy. I'm not gonna break down any of them now, but maybe I will in the future.
I kid you not, Rey. He turned himself into a pickle.
A pickle? How many different ways can I say a pickle? None of them, this word doesn't even sound right anymore. Like, a pickle. Do we have pickles in space? Has Rey even ever seen a pickle? She didn't know there was that much green out in the galaxy, so I don't know if she even really knows what the fuck a pickle is, or if she's just like, oh my god, a pickle.
I really don't have much to say about The Force Awakens. I don't have any sections where I talk about the good and bad, because to be totally honest, it's just a retelling of A New Hope with new characters. It's just like George said. Star Wars is like poetry, and it rhymes. To be totally fair, it's not the exact same as A New Hope. There are a lot of new elements, which does help to make it feel different. I thought the idea of a defecting stormtrooper was interesting, and I'm very glad they had the balls to kill off Han Solo. Harrison Ford wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi because he believes that Lando and Luke would have taken any roles he could have had, and Han would have had a really lame ending. Obviously, he didn't, but at the time, Harrison Ford didn't know that. Han could have very easily had a really lame ending in The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, or The Rise of Skywalker, but I'm quite glad he got the ending he did. Trying to persuade his son back to the light, just as Luke once did with Darth Vader. It's like poetry, it rhymes!
Hi, I'm holding for Candace.
Candace? Who is Candace?
Candace
Pretty much the only thing keeping me from making this video for weeks and weeks was working out how to talk about The Last Jedi without pissing off every single Star Wars fan in existence. I'm 90% sure I failed. The thing about The Last Jedi is the fanbase is extremely divided on it. You either think this is the best Star Wars movie or you think it's the worst Star Wars movie. I don't know, I think it's alright. I don't think it's perfect, it's got huge issues, but it's not that bad. I think people tend to forget that the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones were actually terrible, because either Revenge of the Sith's finale was so good, or because people who grew up with the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones now look back at it with nostalgia. Like all movies in the Disney Star Wars trilogy, the special effects, whether it's CGI or practical, look really fucking good. The acting is also pretty good. A lot of people really didn't like the style of comedy that it was going for. I actually quite like it. It's kind of like the comedy in the MCU. As someone who really likes the MCU comedy, I really like it here. I completely understand why people didn't. I also know a lot of people had a problem with the way Luke's character was dealt with, but I thought it was a really good way to move his character forward. I've seen a lot of people saying that Luke should have been the same Luke as in Return of the Jedi, but this is set 3 decades after the end of the original trilogy. That's simply not feasible. No one's the same person they were after 30 years have passed. Even down to Luke tossing away his lightsaber, I even think that was a good idea. It shows he's fully stopped caring about the Jedi and about being a Jedi. I've seen people say he should have solemnly handed it back or dropped it or something, but that's simply not the way Luke's character would have done it. You have to remember that at this point, he's in a very dark place. The whole Canto Bight subplot felt a bit odd. I've heard people say that it was completely pointless, and while I don't agree with that, it did feel really out of place. Admiral Holdo, just everything about her. Her entire plan was to not tell Poe anything because, oh, he's demoted. If she had just told Poe the plan from the beginning, Finn and Rose wouldn't have gone on to Snoke's Destroyer, and I think his name was DJ, he wouldn't have told the First Order about the smaller ships. The plan would have worked, and she wouldn't have needed to hyperspace battering ram it. Rose saving Finn at the end of the film really made no sense. She says, we're not gonna win this war by destroying what we hate, but by saving what we love, which makes no goddamn sense. Finn didn't hate the battering ram. He was trying to destroy it to save the people he loves. If in Rise of Skywalker it had been revealed that Rose was a spy, that could have been a really interesting moment. As it is, the Rise of Skywalker just pretends Rose doesn't exist.
Somehow Palpatine returned. He's a pickle now. We call him Pickle Palpatine.
After the shit show that was the fan reaction to The Last Jedi, Disney went back and hired Jar Jar Abrams to do the next Star Wars film. Yes, I'm calling him that. The original script was taking too long to be written, so old Jar Jar went, fuck it, let's just do Return of the Jedi again. Rise of Skywalker is an insult to anyone who was even remotely invested in this trilogy. It actively goes out of its way to undo everything in The Last Jedi, whether it's Rey's parents being nobodies or just Rose's existence. The film just feels petty. For example, the original plan in Duel of the Fates, which is what the original script was called, was to have Rey use the halves of Luke's lightsaber to craft her own double-sided one, which is pretty badass. As it is, in Rise of Skywalker, she just kinda uses a blowtorch to put it back together. Jar Jar also made the interesting decision to bring Palpatine back, despite the fact that in Return of the Jedi, he gets blown to bits. And then blown to bits. The explanation we get is, somehow Palpatine returned. They don't even fucking know how he did it. If Palpatine's return had been set up at all during this trilogy, this could have been kinda interesting, but it just comes out of nowhere and feels like Disney has stopped giving a shit. So why do I like this film so goddamn much? I'm not trying to do a bit here, this is a lot of fun. While there are moments where the dialogue falls flat, and I mean, really, really falls flat. For the most part, it's witty and snappy. It also provides enough spectacle that if you turn your brain off and just look at the pretty ships, you can have one hell of a time. It's like watching a Michael Bay Transformers movie. Again, the effects work is great, CGI and practical, the dialogue is alright, and it really does provide a lot of spectacle. I thought C-3PO was really good in this. They kind of go for the Empire Strikes Back angle, where he's just kind of trying to be himself and everyone else is bullying him. Kylo Ren's arc is the only one in this entire movie that feels like it had been built up throughout the trilogy. Everyone else's just kind of comes out of nowhere, which is a good segue too. As I was saying before segueing, everyone's character arcs feels like they've come out of nowhere. Finn and Poe don't even have proper character arcs. They feel like they were meant to, but then Jar Jar forgot to actually write them in. Rey's character arc actively undoes everything The Last Jedi did. Rey being no one was the hardest answer for her. It meant that her family didn't give a shit about her and just abandoned her. Jar Jar, meanwhile, went, Palpatine is the big evil of Star Wars, so if Rey is related to Palpatine, it'll be hard! But in reality, that's the exact answer she wanted to hear this entire time. It means her parents did care about her. They didn't abandon her, they hid her to save her. They fucking sacrificed themselves for her. Also, the kiss between Kylo Ren and Rey makes no goddamn sense and is even weirder when you consider that technically they're related. Let me go on a bit of a tangent to explain that. In The Phantom Menace, Anakin's mum says there was no father. This is because canonically, Palpatine uses Force magical bullshit to create... This is because canonically, Palpatine used magical force bullshit. This is because canonically, Christ on a bike. This is because canonically, Palpatine used magical force bullshit to create Anakin, which makes Anakin his son. Leia is Anakin's daughter, and Ben is Leia's son, which makes them second cousins or something. Still less incestuous in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but that doesn't make it any better. Not to mention all the shit Rey has been through because of Kylo Ren. Other people have pointed out that it comes off as vaguely abusive. Fortunately, Ben dies immediately after. And that's all the mainline movies. They got some seriously high highs and some seriously low lows that I never want to hit again, but overall I'd say they're pretty good. None of them are perfect, but they don't have to be. I really do hope that in the future Disney actually plans out the story for any Star Wars films they make. I know it was rumored that Taika Waititi was going to do a Star Wars movie, and obviously we've got all the stuff on Disney+, so despite the end of the Star Wars saga, I think we're a long way off the end of Star Wars. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to you. Of course, Star Wars fans will find a way to ruin it anyway, because no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.